This is crazy. After working with thousands of people over the past 17 years and running labs on most of them, I've discovered that 75% of them had low vitamin D levels. What's really fascinating is most of them presented these bizarre symptoms which were all linked to a vitamin D deficiency. This is something you need to know. I'm about to reveal these 5 bizarre symptoms of a vitamin D deficiency, plus the best ways to naturally raise vitamin D. I'll share the one hormone that when it's high, it blocks vitamin D from being elevated, the optimal ranges for vitamin D, my thoughts on vitamin D supplementation, and much more. Vitamin D is not only a vitamin, but also a steroid hormone. When it's low, your body will communicate with you through symptoms. It's important to understand that these symptoms I'm about to reveal are not bad. We should not mask them or hate them. Symptoms are your body's check engine light. We should be grateful for them. The body's always communicating with us. Let's pay attention. So let's start with the first bizarre symptom. That's going to be chronic fatigue and exhaustion. Vitamin D is involved with energy production and mitochondrial function. Vitamin D plays a crucial role in cellular energy production by supporting mitochondrial function, which is the powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondria produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency of the cell. When vitamin D is deficient, mitochondrial function can be impaired, reducing the cell's ability to produce energy efficiently. This could lead to feelings of chronic tiredness and fatigue, even if a person is well rested. You see, vitamin D is involved in regulating various hormones, including those that affect mood and energy levels, such as serotonin. Low serotonin levels can contribute to both mood disturbances such as depression and fatigue. In fact, studies have found that people with seasonal affective disorder, SAD, tend to have low vitamin D levels, and correcting these levels often helps with both mood and energy. There was a study done on fatigue in healthy individuals. This study was published in the North American Journal of Medical Sciences in 2014. It investigated the link between low vitamin D levels and fatigue in otherwise healthy individuals. It found that individuals with lower levels of vitamin D reported significantly higher levels of fatigue compared to those with normal levels. After supplementing with vitamin D, many of the participants experienced improved energy levels and reduced feelings of exhaustion. Fatigue is a common and disabling symptom in people with multiple sclerosis, and studies have found that low vitamin D levels are prevalent in this population. Research suggests that vitamin D supplementation may help chronic fatigue in MS patients. The anti-inflammatory effects of vitamin D are thought to be particularly relevant for these individuals. In a clinical trial published in the BMJ Case Reports 2013, a patient with long-term fatigue was found to have low levels of vitamin D. After receiving high-dose vitamin D supplementation for a period of 2 months, the patient's fatigue symptoms resolved. This case supports the idea that vitamin D deficiency can lead to persistent tiredness, and correcting this deficiency can lead to significant improvement. Athletes with vitamin D deficiency often report decreased performance, lethargy, and exhaustion. A study published in Nutrients 2018 demonstrated that vitamin D supplementation in athletes improved their performance and energy levels, supporting the role of vitamin D in muscle function and energy metabolism. The second bizarre symptom is depression and mood changes. There are vitamin D receptors in the brain, and these receptors are found in several areas in the brain, including the hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex, which are critical regions for regulating mood and behavior. When vitamin D levels are insufficient, the brain's ability to regulate mood are disrupted, contributing to symptoms of depression and anxiety. We already established that vitamin D plays a role in regulating the production of serotonin. This is a neurotransmitter that helps stabilize mood and promotes feelings of well-being and happiness. A deficiency in vitamin D can lower serotonin levels, potentially leading to depression, irritability, and mood disturbances. This is why, like we mentioned, seasonal affective disorder. These conditions are associated with low sunlight exposure, which reduces the body's ability to synthesize vitamin D and subsequently serotonin. Chronic inflammation has been strongly linked to depression, and vitamin D has anti-inflammatory properties that help to reduce systemic inflammation. When vitamin D levels are deficient, inflammation will increase, and this may contribute to the development or exacerbation of depression. This connection in particular is relevant to individuals with inflammatory disorders who also exhibit symptoms of depression. Vitamin D is believed to be neuroprotective, meaning it helps to protect your neurons, the brain cells, these nerve cells. It protects them from brain damage. This is important because chronic stress, poor poor mental health, and conditions like depression are associated with damage to neurons and brain structures over time. A lack of vitamin D may impair this protective function, leaving the brain more vulnerable to stress-related damage and cognitive decline. A large meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Psychiatry in 2013 reviewed studies linking low vitamin D levels to depression. It concluded that people with low levels of vitamin D had significantly increased risk of depression compared to those with sufficient levels. While the exact cause remains under investigation, the correlation is clear, especially in those with moderate to severe vitamin D deficiency. It's not a coincidence that those who experience seasonal affective disorder is a type of depression that occurs during the times where there's less sunshine out there. Several studies, such as one published in the Medical Hypotheses in 2010, suggest that vitamin D supplementation can alleviate depressive symptoms in individuals with SAD by helping to restore proper serotonin levels. Research published in Nutrients 2020 was analyzed, and it was a randomized controlled trial, and it found that vitamin D supplementation significantly improved depressive symptoms in individuals with low vitamin D levels. These improvements were particularly notable in those with major depressive disorder, showing that supplementation, and I'm going to talk about the right way to do it later, could be an effective adjunct treatment for depression in some cases. A study published in the Journal of Post-Acute and Long-Term Care Medicine 2011 found that older adults with low vitamin D levels were more likely to experience depression. The study also noted that vitamin D supplementation led to mood improvements in this population, which is especially prone to both vitamin D deficiency and depression due to reduced outdoor activity and sunlight exposure. Vitamin D and the link to postpartum depression. This affects many women after childbirth, and emerging research suggests a link between low vitamin D levels during pregnancy and the risk of developing postpartum depression. A study published in the Archives of Women's Mental Health in 2015 found that pregnant women with lower vitamin D levels were at risk of experiencing postpartum depressive symptoms. They suggested that supplementation during pregnancy may help to reduce this risk. The number 3 bizarre symptom of a vitamin D deficiency is hair loss. Hair loss, particularly when it's sudden or excessive, is often linked to various underlying health conditions, including a vitamin D deficiency. While vitamin D is typically associated with bone health, it's also crucial for maintaining skin and hair follicle structure. The relationship between low vitamin D levels and hair loss has been the subject of several studies, and many suggest that vitamin D plays a vital role in hair growth and the hair cycle. Allow me to explain more about this link. Hair growth occurs in cycles that often include a growth phase and then a resting phase, and then there's a shedding phase. Vitamin D is believed to play a role in initiating the growth phase, the phase which the hair grows, but when vitamin D levels are low, hair follicles may have difficulty transitioning from the resting phase back into the growth phase, leading to thinning hair or increased shedding. There are actually vitamin D receptors in hair follicles. These are present in the cells that form hair follicles. These are present in the cells that help to regulate the hair cycle. Research has shown that the absence of sufficient vitamin D, the signaling pathways that support the growth and maintenance of hair follicles, may be impaired. This can lead to hair loss and slower regrowth of hair, contributing to the condition of hair loss. Vitamin D also influences the function of keratinocytes. These cells are responsible for producing keratin, a protein that makes up the structure of hair, skin, and nails. When vitamin D levels are low, this activity may be disrupted, weakening hair structure and leading to the breakage and hair thinning. Several studies have demonstrated a connection between a vitamin D deficiency and alopecia, which is an autoimmune condition categorized by patchy hair loss. A study published in Skin Pharmacology and Physiology in 2014 found that patients with alopecia had significantly lower serum vitamin D levels than healthy controls. The severity of hair loss was inversely related to vitamin D levels, meaning the lower the vitamin D, the more severe the hair loss. Female pattern hair loss, a common form of hair thinning in women, has also been linked to vitamin D deficiency. Research published in the International Journal of Trichology 2013 found that women with hair loss had lower vitamin D levels compared to the control group. The study suggested that addressing vitamin D deficiency could be beneficial in managing the hair loss. Additionally, a study published in the Journal of Dermatology and Clinical Research 2017 found that patients who had hair loss had lower vitamin D levels compared to those without hair loss. Supplementation with vitamin D in these patients showed improvements in hair regrowth over time. Then we have male and female pattern baldness. This has been examined in relation to vitamin D levels. While the primary cause is genetic and hormonal, vitamin D deficiency may exacerbate the condition. A study published in the Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology 2020 reported that patients with this condition had significantly lower levels of vitamin D than those without the hair loss, suggesting that vitamin D supplementation might aid in reducing the progression of this form of hair loss. Then we have postpartum hair loss, a condition many women experience after giving birth. This may be linked to nutrient deficiencies, including vitamin D. During pregnancy, vitamin D stores are often depleted to support fetal development, and this deficiency can worsen after childbirth. Research suggests that maintaining adequate vitamin D levels during pregnancy and postpartum could help to reduce the severity of hair shedding during this time. The next bizarre symptom of a vitamin D deficiency is brain fog. Vitamin D deficiency has been increasingly linked to impaired cognitive function, including memory problems, slower processing speeds, and even a higher risk for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The brain has numerous vitamin D receptors, and this vitamin plays a role in protecting neurons and regulating neuroinflammation, both of which are vital for maintaining cognitive health. Here's a deeper dive into the mechanisms and research connecting vitamin D deficiency and cognitive decline. The vitamin D receptors in the brain are found in several areas of the brain that we outlined earlier. These receptors play a vital role in regulating the growth and survival of neurons, as well as in protecting against neurodegenerative processes. When vitamin D levels are low, the brain may be less able to maintain healthy neural function, leading to cognitive decline. Vitamin D has been shown to be neuroprotective, which include reducing oxidative stress and protecting neurons from damage. This is critical for brain health, as oxidative stress is a key factor in the development of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. A vitamin D deficiency may impair these neuroprotective effects, leaving neurons more vulnerable to damage over time. Vitamin D is involved in the regulation of neurotransmitters such as acetylcholine and dopamine, which are essential for memory, mood, and overall cognitive function. Reduced levels of vitamin D can disrupt the balance of these neurotransmitters, potentially leading to cognitive issues, including problems with attention, memory, and executive function. Chronic inflammation in the brain is a significant contributor to cognitive decline and also dementia. Vitamin D plays a critical role here. It's anti-inflammatory, and it does this by modulating the immune system's response in the brain. A deficiency in vitamin D may lead to unchecked neuroinflammation, which is associated with conditions like Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. Vitamin D also plays a role in maintaining vascular health, which is essential for proper brain function. Poor vascular health can contribute to cognitive decline through reduced blood flow to the brain. Vitamin D deficiency has been linked to increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, which in turn are risk factors for cognitive impairment. A study published in Neurology 2014 followed a large group of older adults and found that those with low vitamin D levels were significantly more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia. The study concluded that individuals with severe vitamin D deficiency had a 122% increased risk of developing dementia compared to those with adequate levels. A study in the Journal of American Geriatric Society 2012 followed more than 1,000 older adults over a 5-year period. The researchers found that participants with low vitamin D levels experienced a faster rate of cognitive decline, particularly in areas related to memory and executive function. This suggests that maintaining adequate vitamin D levels may slow cognitive decline. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2015 examined the relationship between vitamin D levels and cognitive performance in older adults. The study found that individuals that had higher levels of vitamin D performed better on tests for working memory and attention. This supports the idea that vitamin D deficiency can impair specific cognitive domains, particularly those related to short-term memory and focus. A meta-analysis published in Aging Research Reviews 2016 reviewed several studies on vitamin D and cognitive decline. The authors concluded that low serum vitamin D levels were consistently associated with poor cognitive performance, including slower processing speeds, reduced attention, and impaired executive function. The study suggested that vitamin D could be a modifiable risk factor for cognitive decline. Some studies have shown that vitamin D supplementation can improve cognitive function in individuals with this deficiency. A trial published in JAMA Neurology 2017 found that participants with mild cognitive impairment who were supplementing with vitamin D showed improvements in cognitive tests, particularly in executive function and attention. In a study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease 2020, researchers explored the effect of vitamin D supplementation on preventing cognitive decline in older adults. The study found that individuals with sufficient vitamin D levels at baseline who continued supplementation were less likely to experience cognitive decline over time compared to those who remained deficient. And the fifth bizarre symptom of a vitamin D deficiency is getting sick all the time, cold and flus. Vitamin D plays an essential role in the immune function, and its deficiency has been linked to increased susceptibility to infections. This connection is rooted in vitamin D's role in both the innate and the adaptive immune responses, which help the body fend off pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi. People with low vitamin D levels are more prone to infections such as respiratory infections, the flu, and even more serious conditions like pneumonia and sepsis. Vitamin D is crucial for the production of antimicrobial peptides. These peptides are part of the body's immune system and serve as a first line of defense against invading pathogens. One of these peptides can directly kill bacteria, viruses, and fungi. When vitamin D levels are low, the production of these peptides are impaired, reducing the body's ability to fight off infections at the initial stages. Vitamin D enhances the pathogen killing ability of macrophages. This is the immune cells that engulf and digest foreign invaders. It also modulates their activity to ensure that the immune response is both effective and controlled. Without sufficient vitamin D, macrophages may be less effective in destroying pathogens, increasing the likelihood of infections. Vitamin D helps regulate adaptive immunity, which provides a more specific immune response by producing antibodies and creating immune memory. Vitamin D influences T regulatory cells, which help maintain immune tolerance and prevent overactive immune responses. It also impacts B cells, which are responsible for producing antibodies that neutralize pathogens. A deficiency in vitamin D can impair these processes, making it harder for the body to generate an appropriate immune response to infections. Vitamin D modulates the production of cytokines, which are signaling molecules that guide the immune response. While cytokines are essential for fighting infections, an overproduction of pro-inflammatory cytokines can lead to excessive inflammation, contributing to tissue damage during infections. You heard about the cytokine storm the last 4 to 5 years. Vitamin D helps to reduce the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines while promoting the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines, balancing the immune response to prevent harmful overreactions during infections. Vitamin D helps to maintain the integrity of the epithelial barriers in the respiratory and gastrointestinal tracts, which are primary entry points for many pathogens. These barriers are lined with cells that produce mucus, which traps pathogens and antimicrobial proteins that help to kill them. When vitamin D levels are low, the epithelial barriers can become weakened, increasing the risk of respiratory and gastrointestinal infections. Some studies suggest that vitamin D inhibits the replication of viruses, particularly those that affect the respiratory system, such as influenza and coronaviruses. By promoting antiviral mechanisms and reducing the ability of viruses to replicate, vitamin D deficiency can make the body more susceptible to viral infections, especially in the lungs. One of the most well-established connections between vitamin D and infection susceptibility is the context of respiratory infections. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal in 2017 analyzed 25 randomized controlled trials over 11,000 participants. The study concluded that vitamin D supplementation reduced the risk of acute respiratory infections, particularly in individuals with low baseline vitamin D levels. This suggests that vitamin D plays a significant role in protecting against respiratory infections, including colds, flu, and pneumonia. Historically, vitamin D was used in the treatment for tuberculosis before the development of antibiotics, and recent research has revived interest in its potential as an adjunct therapy for tuberculosis. A study published in the Lancet Infectious Diseases 2011 demonstrated that vitamin D supplementation enhanced the body's immune system to deal with tuberculosis by boosting the production of these antimicrobial peptides. The study found that vitamin D deficiency in individuals were more likely to develop TB than the group that took the vitamin D supplements. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that this led to a lot of studies investigating the role of vitamin D. And research published in Nature 2021 suggested that individuals with vitamin D deficiency were at a higher risk for severe outcomes from COVID-19, including higher rates of hospitalization, respiratory failure, and death. The study suggested that vitamin D's role in modulating the immune response, reducing the cytokine storm, and enhancing antiviral defenses could be protective against severe respiratory infections like COVID-19. Influenza, which is commonly known as the flu, has also been linked to vitamin D status. A randomized controlled trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2010 found that school children who received vitamin D supplementation during flu season had significantly lower incidences of influenza A infection compared to those who did not receive the supplementation. So bottom line, if you want to get sick less often, optimize your vitamin D levels. Now let's get to the most common questions I get asked when I lecture on this topic. First question is, I've been taking vitamin D supplements for years, but my blood levels have not changed. What's going on here? In the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned that I'm going to reveal the #1 hormone. When it's elevated, not only do you store fat with this hormone, it blocks vitamin D from being produced and used, and that is going to be insulin. It doesn't matter how much vitamin D supplements you take. If you have high levels of insulin, you're not gonna raise your blood levels of vitamin D. Individuals who have insulin resistance and diabetes have chronically low levels of vitamin D because insulin and vitamin D have an inverted relationship. When insulin is high, vitamin D is low. So take all the supplements you want, but it isn't until you lower insulin that your vitamin D levels, your blood vitamin D levels will increase. So get a fasting insulin test, and you want that to be in the single digits. If it's between 10 and 20, you have signs of insulin resistance and your vitamin D is going to be low. If it's over 20, you have severe insulin resistance and your vitamin D is going to be very low. So how do you lower insulin? Well, I have a ton of content on my Metabolic Freedom podcast and this YouTube channel on the keto diet, intermittent fasting, exercise. Just watch the videos on this channel. All of them are designed to lower insulin and by default raise vitamin D. Next question is, what are the best foods to eat that increase my vitamin D levels? These are going to be fatty fish like wild-caught salmon, eggs with the yolk, and mushrooms. Those are my top 3 favorite foods to raise vitamin D. Eat them frequently. Next question is, should I supplement with vitamin D? If so, what's the best way? Great question. I'm going to tell you this. Most people who take vitamin D create some other problems. You see, all of the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K, compete for the same receptor sites on your cells. And if you just take vitamin D without the other fat-soluble vitamins, it creates something called a functional deficiency, where you get low in vitamin A, E, and K, even though you raise vitamin D if your insulin is low. So if you're gonna supplement with a vitamin D supplement, you wanna make sure it contains all of the fat-soluble vitamins together, A, D, E, and K. Personally, I use vitamin D cyclically, and I use the company called Systemic Formulas DV3, which has all the fat-soluble vitamins in the proper ratios. I take 2 to 3 per day, and you want to take your vitamin D and fat-soluble vitamins with food, not on an empty stomach, to increase the absorption, especially a fatty meal, healthy fats, and even when you take it on an empty stomach, you might get nauseous as well. I'll drop a link for Systemic Formulas, vitamin D, the DV3, in the notes down below, or you could go to ketocampsupplements.com to find that. Next question is, what are the optimal ranges for vitamin D in my blood test? What's crazy to me is that when you do your blood work and you get that report back, it's gonna have a range of 30 to 90, meaning if you're 35 on that blood report for your vitamin D levels, your doctor's not gonna flag that as a deficiency. But in my book, that is a deficiency. The standard reference range is factoring everybody who's taken that test, and most people are not healthy. We wanna be in the functional range. So personally, I want my vitamin D and my students to be between 60 and 90. That's gonna be an optimal range. So if you're at 40, 45, even 52, that's a deficiency. You wanna get it over 60, get it between 60 and 90. The next question is, what are the best times of the day to get sunshine for vitamin D production? The best time of the day to get sun for optimal vitamin D production is usually between midday, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Here's why. The UVB ray intensity. Vitamin D is produced in the skin when it is exposed to UVB rays from the sun. These rays are most intense around midday when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. This means shorter exposure times are needed compared to other times of the day so you don't get burned. Exposing your skin to the sun during midday maximizes the efficiency of vitamin D production. In the morning or late afternoon, the angle of the sun is lower and the UVB rays have to pass through the atmosphere, reducing their intensity. Getting sun exposure midday also allows for shorter exposure times, which may reduce the risk of overexposure to harmful UVA rays when it's in excess. You don't want to get skin burned or get skin damaged. So 15 to 30 minutes every single day, midday seems to be the sweet spot. And just make sure you have your sunglasses off, your skin is exposed, and you're getting quality sun on your actual skin through your retina. Next question is this: I want to get outside and get sun, but how do I prevent myself from getting burned from the sun? I've noticed that the less seed oils you eat, these are inflammatory fats, the less likelihood you are to get burned. So cutting out the polyunsaturated fats, canola, corn, cottonseed oil, soybean, safflower, sunflower oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, getting that out of your diet and eating more saturated fats and monounsaturated fats like butter, ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil, beef tallow, even lard from healthy pigs is going to be better for your skin. There's also a supplement that's like internal sunscreen called astaxanthin. I'll put a link for the one that I take, but that's something you want to take if you're going to be outside for a long period of time, and it prevents you from getting burned from the sun. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you're going to love a recent video I just published on the carbohydrate that is more inflammatory than sugar. It will shock you. Most of us know that sugar is not good for us. But it turns out there's a carbohydrate more inflammatory, more dangerous than sugar and all processed sugar. Now, this carbohydrate has been touted as being healthy by many doctors and dietitians, but this couldn't be further from the truth.